Good morning. It is July the 4th of 2024. Yep, it is Independence Day. The time is 9:07. I am Chad Holmes. It is the Chad Holmes Show. The Independence Day version on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. And on the Civic Media app. And it is a big day, but if you missed the first hour, we had a previous conversation with the 12th Senate District Democratic candidate, Andy Rich. And we also had a brand new edition of North Star Knows. Again, it may be the 4th of July, but we still had Jay Cricks and a special Independence Day North Star Knows. If you missed those, you can, of course, at some point today, later on, right after the show ends, we will have on our podcast page at bullfallsradio.com, civicmedia.us. Go to either one, our station webpage, bullfallsradio.com, or the Civic Media webpage at civicmedia.us. Just click on shows, then find the logo for the Chad Holmes Show, and then you'll be able to get all the previous episodes of this program, including that first hour. And as I said to Jay Cricks earlier, during our North Star Knows segment, every Thursday for the last, 5 months now, we have had North Star Knows, and there's been so many interesting discussions, and I think information that you can use. So if you have missed any of the North Star Knows segments, go back and take a listen, because I think it's really something worthwhile. A lot of great information from Jay, John Garcia, and everybody at North Star Restoration and North Star Builds. Coming up in this hour, in just a little bit at 9:20, we'll be bringing back an interview from, I think, about a month ago. Doug Jones, former United States Senator from the state of Alabama. He's a surrogate for President Joe Biden. He came to Wausau not for a big campaign rally or anything like that. He came for a roundtable discussion with 9 folks around a table. It was really interesting. I went there and I covered it and sat back and watched as Senator Jones talked to the folks around the table. The topic was Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and it was really, I thought, and as we hear on July the 4th, where you think about the history of our country, the history of our government, you want things to be right. You want people that care about the issues and care about making our country a better place to live and to make the system work. And that's something that Civic Media tries to do. We try to do our part to make the system work. And so often we don't see the system work. And on that day, I was enlightened because I did, I think, in a small way, see the system work. And it was 9 people, along with a former United States Senator, in this election year talking about an important issue. And the way that Doug Jones was able to, number one, connect with each of these folks, get their name, get their story, find out where they're from, and then listen as they gave either a question or made an observation about these issues, and then responded in such a smart way, in a way where a conversation could happen. Again, I was just really impressed with U.S. Senator Doug Jones, and I shouldn't be surprised, because anybody that knows the history of Senator Jones knows that he's done big things, not just in his couple of years as a senator. Of course, he took over as a United States Senator in a special election, and he was able to win in a very difficult environment in the state of Alabama for Democrats. And then when he ran for a full term, he was defeated by an ex-football coach, Tommy Tuberville, who has proven to be, if not the worst, or the least intelligent, he's right up there. Again, you look at, you had a guy like Doug Jones who works for the people of Alabama, and then you got a guy like Tommy Tuberville who doesn't. And I'm not going to delve into that. But Doug Jones, even before he went to the Senate, he worked in civil rights in the Deep South. He worked as a lawyer. He worked to help people in the Deep South, in Alabama. And when he came up here and I saw him in action working and talking to these folks, again, when you get cynical about the system, it is wonderful to see people that try to do the right thing and people who are truly invested in making our country a better place. So after that event, I had a chance to talk to former Senator Doug Jones, and we are going to hear that conversation coming up a little bit later on in this hour. Had a chance to talk to him about the record for President Joe Biden, talked a little bit about, as well, the Senate race between Tammy Baldwin and Eric Hovde in terms of asking Senator Jones what it was like working with Senator Baldwin, what she does in the halls of Congress to make the lives of Wisconsinites better, and talk generally about the issues he was talking about with those folks around the roundtable as well. So again, I was really impressed, and I think here on July the 4th, to be able to be impressed by somebody like I was with Doug Jones, I wanted to bring back that conversation, and we will hear that coming up in just a few minutes. Also, at the end of the hour, we will be with Ian Welsh, and we will have our daily history lesson. Of course, here on July the 4th, there's plenty of history to talk about. It is a big day in American history. In fact, one of the most incredible coincidences in American history came on July the 4th back in 1826. And 1826 was a rather significant day in American history because that was the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and something just amazing happened on that day, and that'll be part of our daily history lesson. We'll have our number for the day and our number for the day quiz with Ian as well coming up. So that's still to come here on this 4th of July. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of the history of Independence Day, because I think we all know some of the basics, but I want to give a little bit more in case you're not totally familiar with Independence Day, or better known as the 4th of July. I like to call it Independence Day because that's what it is. It's the 4th of July. Yes, it's always the 4th of July. It's like the 5th of July, but it is Independence Day. So this has been a federal holiday in the United States since 1941, but the tradition of the celebrations goes all the way back, really, basically almost to the beginning, back in the 18th century and the American Revolution. For pure history, it was on July the 2nd of 1776 that the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence. And, of course, it was the document drafted by Thomas Jefferson. And ever since 1776, July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of American independence based on that vote from the 13 colonies. And, of course, when way back, festivities have ranged from fireworks, parades, concerts, to more casual family gatherings and barbecues. And, again, it's just it's a tradition, and it really hasn't changed all that much in terms of how we celebrate. And just going back to the 1770s, when the initial battles in the Revolutionary War broke out in April 1775, few colonists really desired complete independence from Great Britain, and those who did were considered radical. How often do we hear folks that are at the time considered radical actually just being ahead of their times? By the middle of 1776, however, many more colonists had come to favor independence, thanks to growing hostility against Britain and the spread of revolutionary sentiments, such as those expressed in the best-selling pamphlet Common Sense, published by Thomas Paine in early of 1776. And then the balls just kept on rolling. On June the 7th, when the Continental Congress met at the Pennsylvania State House, later Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee introduced a motion calling for the colony's independence. Amid heated debate, Congress postponed the vote on Lee's resolution, but appointed a 5-man committee, including Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, and Robert R. Livingston of New York, to draft a formal statement justifying the break with Great Britain. So, again, you talk about an incredible group of people getting together to put together the Declaration. I mean, just amazing. And by the way, John Adams, he believed that July 2nd, as I mentioned earlier, was the correct date on which to celebrate the birth of American independence. And Adams would reportedly turn down invitations to appear at July 4th events in protest. And anybody that's read the incredible David McCullough book on John Adams knows that John Adams did truly have a lot of edge to him. But one of the great Americans, and what a great book and a great story. But again, Adams and Jefferson, part of that coincidence on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration. And we're going to talk about that in our daily history lesson, so stick around. It's really, again, if you haven't heard what happened on July the 4th of 1826, stick around, because, again, it's an incredible coincidence. But, of course, the Congress ultimately did adopt the Declaration of Independence, written largely by Jefferson, and that has led to all these great celebrations. And I think that anybody that lives in the United States, on July the 4th, we all think back. And I've talked a lot over the number of months about we're coming up on a major milestone, 250 years. And that's coming up 2 years from today, July the 4th of 2026. The 250th anniversary of the country and the Declaration of Independence. And when you see folks, and I would say the MAGAs led by Donald Trump, who want to cut the legs out from the system that we have had for all these years. The idea of somebody like Donald Trump being in the White House on the 250th birthday of the Declaration of Independence is something that, frankly, frightens me a great deal. So, as we do celebrate today, just know that the rest of 2024, there is a lot of important decisions that will be made by the United States of America as we head into year number 249 of this great experiment. Coming up, we will hear that conversation I had with the former Senator Doug Jones. Again, very impressive man. Very, very impressive. Great conversation. We'll hear that coming up next. I'm Chad Holmes. July the 4th, Independence Day version of the Chad Holmes Show. Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
No more timing. Each tear that falls from my eyes.
And welcome back to July 4th edition of the Chad Holmes Show. Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Well, recently, here in Wausau in central Wisconsin, former Senator Doug Jones of Alabama came to speak at a roundtable. The topic was Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and I had a chance to talk to former Senator Jones about the upcoming presidential election, about the Senate election coming up in Wisconsin, and more. So here was myself and former Senator Doug Jones recently in Wausau.
Very fortunate to get a few minutes with the Senator. First of all, Senator, thank you very much for spending a few minutes with us.
Thanks for having me. It's great being in Wisconsin.
I will not ask you the obvious question of why you're in Wisconsin, because I think everybody knows why you are in Wisconsin. But the visit here to Wausau and the visit for us, this is not a rally. This was you sitting down with 9 voters and I think party activists and I think older voters talking about the issues of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. One thing that jumped out during the discussion is there's a lot of talk about younger people. This was not a case of where you're just talking about self-interest. Could you talk a little bit about, number one, why this is an important issue to you, the president, and the campaign itself, and what did you find out during the discussion?
Sure. Look, this is an important issue for the president and the re-elect because he wants to do everything he can and to protect Medicare, to protect Social Security. He fully understands and knows how important that is. It is a lifeline for folks and it's their money. We keep hearing the word entitlements. This is not entitlement. These people have paid in. It's their money it's supposed to be there for them, and they have depended on it. So these stories today were really to reinforce that how important that income is, how important that health care is. And it's important to this campaign, it's important to this president, because the other candidate in this race, the former president, would do away with it. He would absolutely either privatize it, do away with it, or cut benefits. And that's what they're saying. That is what he and members of his party are talking about. And Joe Biden believes that that is just an unconscionable way to treat seniors, that we need to be doing more to protect people's retirement and their ability to live fruitful lives as they get older with good health care and a good stable income that they can live on.
One thing that I talk about quite a bit is the importance of knowing history. And people actually, if you look back, we know what it's like when there was not Social Security, when there was not Medicare, when there was not Medicaid, when there was, basically you go back well over 100 years now, especially late 19th century, early 20th century, that ultimately led to this. We know what the consequences are, but a lot of people really don't know, do they?
No, they don't at all. I mean, it's one thing to learn and read about consequences and things that happen and how families survived in days when there was no Medicare or no Social Security. But it's another thing to have to go through it now. People of our age and generation have never experienced life without this, and so it's hard sometimes to get that. If something is supposed to be there for you and you've grown up the whole time knowing that you have paid into this, and you have contributed over time, you're expecting it. And as you get older, and I can attest to this because of where I am in my life, you start looking and you plan and you understand that this is going to be there for you, and you make your life choices as you get older based on that income. And that's incredibly important. And I think a lot of the messages get lost, particularly on young people today, how important it is to not only to save, but also to have that ability to know, to have that backstop. But, it was often referred to as a three-legged stool here. Well, for a lot of people, it's just that one single leg. Social Security is their savings because that's how they have contributed. They try to save, they try to have homes. But at the end of the day, that income coming in from Social Security is their lifeline for a secure and really decent living as they go forward.
Again, we're talking to Doug Jones, former senator from the state of Alabama, here on Bull Falls Radio. When you started off, you said a few words about the president, and it came across as very sincere in terms of knowing the president as a president, as a man, as somebody that's been able to, I think, really establish a pretty good record. You were in the Senate. You know how hard it is to get things done, especially when it's a very narrow gap between the parties, whether you're in control or not in control. The president, the record is there. And I think sometimes there's so much talk about personality and so much talk about a lot of the click-worthy aspects of politics these days. Both these gentlemen have records, and then the president's record in his first term has been very impressive, hasn't it?
I think that Joe Biden's record as president will rival some of the great presidents in history, and I really am sincerely mean that. I'm talking about presidents such as Lyndon Johnson, who got so much done for Social Security, for Medicaid, for Medicare. I'm talking about Franklin D. Roosevelt, who really saved the economy of this country. And what Joe Biden did, and people have short memories sometimes, and they forget that Joe Biden inherited an economy that was really just barely coming out of some recovery from being in the tank because of COVID. And a lot of the policies of Donald Trump in the previous administration. We were having to come out of COVID itself and try to get to make sure people survived and businesses survived. And I think people forget where we were in this country when he actually came over and took over in January of 2021. And the success that he has had is really remarkable. And I'm talking about across the board. It is in both the economy, with trying to make sure inflation comes down, which was, by the way, a worldwide problem. The United States weathered inflation better than any civilized country in the world. And that was because of the way that this administration handled it. creating jobs, 15 million new jobs in the 3 years that he's been in office, making sure that our military is as strong and that we are protecting democracy not only at home but around the world, whether it is Ukraine, whether it is in Israel, you name it. This president's record is extraordinary. Bringing jobs to America, manufacturing jobs, having bipartisan infrastructure bill passed. First president in decades who's been able to get a bipartisan bill, which, by the way, is bringing in close to $7 billion in Wisconsin. Those are the kind of things that matter. Chip manufacturing, and the list just goes on and on. So yes, this president above all others has created the ability for people to live and prosper.
I will have more with former Senator Doug Jones coming up. We have an information update coming up next, news, weather, and sports, and then, again, more with former Senator Doug Jones of Alabama. Happy Independence Day from Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
I was feeling something wasn't right. There was not another soul in sight. Only you, only you. So we walked alone. Though I knew that there was something wrong. And a feeling that feels so strong about you. When you gazed up at
I've got a pocket full of holes, head in the clouds, the king of fools. You've got a ribbon of rainbows, the sun in your eyes, burning through. Could be I'm happy, I'm sad, could be I'm losing my head over you. Well, you gotta be crazy, baby, to want a guy like me. Yeah, you've gotta be out of your mind, crazy.
Chad Holmes Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Thursday, July the 4th of 2024. And continuing a conversation I had recently with a former United States Senator, a very impressive man. If you look at the whole career working on civil rights issues in the state of Alabama, somebody that has done so much good work for a short time, was able to win a Senate seat in the state of Alabama as a Democrat. Don't see that very often these days. But recently, former Senator Doug Jones was in Wausau, again, talking about issues such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid in a roundtable discussion. At that event, I had a chance to talk to Senator Jones, and I had a chance, to talk about different issues, including our Senator Tammy Baldwin, who is running for re-election in November against Eric Hovde. That's part of the discussion as we continue with Senator Doug Jones, former senator from the state of Alabama.
Remember when the bipartisan infrastructure bill was passed, and the president, I'm fairly certain this is accurate, said that this was not about the next week or the next month. This was going to be something that was important over the next number of years in terms of putting money into the economy, in terms of putting money into jobs. And I think, again, the record bears it out. The fact that despite so many different articles you'd read for year after year, we're on the verge of a recession. We're on the verge of a recession. It's never come, and it hasn't. And it's because of the policies. It was not an accident, was it?
No, it was not an accident at all. The president said from the very beginning that he wanted to rebuild this economy from the ground up and the middle out, and that's exactly what he's done. He's built it with investments. He's built it with infrastructure. He's built it in any number of ways. Even what we're doing, and even with what we're doing to assist Ukraine, is helping the economy, because the dollars that we've assisted with Ukraine are 90% of them are investing in American technology and American companies that are then sending equipment over to Ukraine. So the president has spent a lot of time, I think, and the infrastructure bill is something that everyone should really be thankful for. Like I say, it was decades. When I was in the Senate, I heard it all. Infrastructure Week became a punchline. It was just a joke. This president got it done. And it was not easy to get done. The other thing that I think people forget is that Joe Biden has the ability, and it's getting harder because of a lot of factors in Washington, D.C., but he's got the ability, he's got the experience and the expertise to reach across the aisle to get things like the infrastructure bill done. Veterans, the PAC Act for veterans benefits was a bipartisan bill. The CHIP Act, bringing manufacturing of chips to this country, was a bipartisan. He could do that. That is something that he, more than anybody I know, had the ability to talk to people and help get those done. So all of those would not have been possible, I don't think, with another president over the last 3 years.
I mentioned as well, you talked like that personally about the president. What's an aspect of the president that, folks may not know, that because you've had a chance to be around him, probably in many different kinds of ways, he does always come across as somebody that is real, that is that shows empathy to others. I mean, you look again, you have to make choices. And you said there's two people on the ballot that have a chance to be president of the United States. And I think that, the personal aspects are there. What is something about the president that you think is important for our listeners to know?
I think people need to understand that when they hear people talk about Joe Biden being empathetic, his empathy, his ability to relate as individual, that is real. I've experienced it over the years. Every time before he became president and since, just about every time that I was with him, he would want to call my mother. And he did that. He would surprise her. Now, she passed away this past December, and he and the First Lady called me from their vacation. It's that kind of human touch that Joe Biden has that I think has served him well in the Senate and as president. And it's something that people can relate to when he comes into a room. I wish everybody in America would have the opportunity to just be in a room with him for a few minutes, because he would seek you out, he would talk, he would empathize, he can relate to people better than anybody I have ever known. And it comes across. He is a prolific user of the telephone, just calling people randomly and checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. All that you see there is real, and I think that is something that is unique to the person sitting in the Oval Office right now. I think folks that get there sometimes tend to go into a role where they're supposed to be aloof. They're supposed to be isolated. Not Joe. He is Joe. In fact, I think he is at his absolute best when there is no teleprompter and he's just with a group of people.
Let me ask you, because you did serve in the United States Senate with both the current senators for the state of Wisconsin, one of which is on the ballot coming up in November, Senator Tammy Baldwin. And during the course of my program, I talk a lot about show horses and work horses. And I've obviously never been as close to the United States Senate as you have, and I've read stories that a lot of the work is done by probably a pretty low percentage of the senators there. That there's some that are very good about going on television and talking a whole lot, and then there are those that are in the trenches doing the work. It's always, again, from a distance, it's come across to me that maybe Tammy Baldwin is somebody that is very proud of the work that she does, and then Senator Johnson is more proud of being on Fox Business quite a bit and talking to Fox News. But let's talk about Senator Baldwin, again, who's up for re-election and has a Republican opponent in Eric Hovde that's got a lot of money, that's putting a lot of spots out there. What were your experiences with Senator Baldwin? How would you rate her as a working senator for the people of Wisconsin?
I think she's a rock star. I'm just telling you, there is not a day goes by that she is not trying to figure out what is the next thing that she needs to be doing for the people of this state. She is all the time talking about it. In caucus meetings, she doesn't speak on any issue unless it's related to Wisconsin and how she's working. She really is one of those worker bees. She really gets, she rolls up her shirt sleeves and gets down into the trenches to do everything possible. And she has worked. But Tammy's also got that ability. And I think this is really important. Tammy's also got that ability to work and for those things, but also to work with others. She recognizes that other senators have priorities for their states and some things, and she will work with them to get things done. That's an effective senator. And that's what I saw in Tammy Baldwin, one of the most effective senators that Wisconsin could ever ask for, and certainly one of the most effective senators that I saw in the United States Senate.
And I guess finally, a final question about generally talking to folks that may differ than with you on different issues or maybe political philosophy, because obviously being a Democrat in the state of Alabama to win a statewide election like you did, it's not easy. I mean, it is not easy. You see a lot of the charts here in Wisconsin. Even there are certain districts that will be plus 22 for the R's, or elect fortunately maybe the other way in some other areas. But when you're not the one that is in the plus category when you're trying to win an election, what did you find when talking to voters, to citizens, to constituents, that maybe you learned during your runs for office that helped you? I mean, even when you didn't win the election, obviously, I think you still performed better than a General D.
Right.
What did you find out that is effective in terms of trying to talk to people that maybe do think a little bit differently philosophically about politics?
Well, I think you try to not talk about politics. You talk about issues. You talk about the things that matter to people, and you go where they are and listen to them. I think a lot of the people that run for office these days do more talking than listening. And you have to listen, and you have to go where people are. The one thing I think people, if you really break away and strip away the R or the D, we really all want the same things. We want good education for our kids. We want good jobs. We want good paying jobs. We want good health care. We want to have a strong military and continue to be the leader of the free world. It's how you get to those. And if you recognize that you have the same common goals, you can talk to people and you can figure out ways where you understand where they are and you can work with them to try to make sure that they feel good about where things are going and you feel good about where things are going. So it's not easy, but I think the hardest thing today is to get people focused not on their team, not on their red team or their blue team, but focus on one team, and that's the American team, and that we should all be pulling together. And it's not always easy, but we're a family, and families pull together. Ultimately, we shouldn't be, tearing each other apart. And let's talk about how we can move this country forward and trying to get people to play on the same set of facts. That's probably the hardest thing to do these days. It gets people to understand a same set of facts and not with a lot of the misinformation that's out there.
Senator Doug Jones, number one, I was very informed by your roundtable. It was very interesting to watch. Instead of seeing a speech in front of a lot of people, just to sit around the table and talk about important issues. I think that is so very vitally important. And thanks afterwards for spending a few minutes with me.
My pleasure. Happy to do it. Check in with me anytime.
And that, again, was Senator Doug Jones, again, former senator from Alabama. And, again, it was really an enjoyable experience talking to Senator Jones. Came across as so real, watching him with a very small group. It was about less than 10 folks were involved in this roundtable discussion that he led. And he really was able to connect with each and every one of the folks. He was genuinely interested in what they had to say about these issues, was able to have a real good give and take. And again, when you look at today, Independence Day, July the 4th, about how this country, how this system should work. And it takes the best of us, and it takes the best of us being at the best of us to be able to have a battle of ideas, have a give and take, learn. Don't think you have all the answers. And again, I was just so impressed with Doug Jones and how we need folks like that serving in government at all levels of government, whether at the local level, whether at the county level, whether at the state level, and whether at the national level, to have folks that take the job seriously, take listening to their constituents seriously, and also just being good folk. And I think that Doug Jones was one of those good people. And afterwards, talking to him and having him be very engaging with me. Again, I was just very, very impressed and was very happy to be able to pay a visit to Doug Jones after that event. And hopefully he'll be back in the state of Wisconsin as we continue into 2024. He came as a surrogate for the Joe Biden campaign. So again, it was wanted to bring back here on this July 4th that discussion that I had with former Senator Doug Jones. Well, again, it is July the 4th. It's a special day, 248th birthday of the United States of America, and we try to do our best to be civic-minded here at Civic Media. We're going to come on back, continue here on this Thursday. We are going to have our daily history lesson. Yeah, here on July the 4th, a lot of famous events occurred on July 4th. And also be joined by Ian Welsh as we'll have our daily number of the day quiz with Ian. So we'll have that to wrap things up here on this July 4th. Chad Holmes Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back. Chad Holmes Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. It is Independence Day, July the 4th, the 248th birthday of the United States of America. Again, just it's always a wonderful holiday. It's a wonderful time of year, and hopefully you, your friends, your family able to enjoy it. And again, celebrate America, celebrate what this country has been over these years, and really enjoy each other and enjoy everything that's really good about living in this country. With Ian Welsh, again, I'm Chad Holmes, and today, July the 4th, as one would expect, some famous events have occurred on this date in American history and world history. Back on July the 4th of 1802 at West Point, New York, the United States Military Academy opened. Also on this date, July the 4th, 1817, at Rome, New York, construction on the Erie Canal began. One of the most amazing coincidences in American history came on this date in 1826. That was the 50th anniversary of the United States of America and the Declaration of Independence, and two of the biggest figures during that era of 1776, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Well, John Adams, the second president of the United States, and Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, both died on July the 4th, 1826, 50 years to the day after the adoption of the United States Declaration of Independence. On July 4th, 1939, Lou Gehrig, recently diagnosed with ALS, told a crowd at Yankee Stadium that he considered himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth as he announced his retirement from Major League Baseball. On this date in 1966, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Freedom of Information Act into United States law. On this date in 1986, more than 250 sailing ships in the United States' biggest fireworks display honored the Statue of Liberty in its 100th birthday year. On this date in 2009, another Statue of Liberty moment. The Statue of Liberty's crown reopened to the public after 8 years. It had been closed due to security reasons following the 9/11 attacks. On July the 4th of 2019, Mad Magazine announced it would stop publishing after 67 years. And on this date, 3 years ago in 2021, researchers revealed there were 14 living descendants of Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci. Some famous folks are celebrating their birthdays today. Carolyn Grimes, who plays Zuzu in It's a Wonderful Life, is 83 years old today. Geraldo Rivera, newsman, been around for a very long time. He was on 2020 on ABC, he was on CNBC, on Fox News. He opened Al Capone's vault. Geraldo Rivera is 81 years old today. Actor Tracy Letts of Ford v Ferrari, also Mr. Dashwood in Little Women, is 59. Mo McRae of Sons of Anarchy is 42. Mike the Situation Sorrentino, one of the Jersey Shore reality show participants, is 42. Rapper Post Malone turning 29. And former First Daughter Malia Obama is 26 years old today. If you out there celebrating your birthday on the 4th of July, happy birthday to you from all of us at Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Special events, of course, it's Independence Day. It is Independence from Meat Day. I'm not so sure about that one. It is Barbecue Day. It is Barbecued Spare Ribs Day. It is Caesar Salad Day. It is Country Music Day. It is Sidewalk Egg Frying Day. So those are a few of the events to be remembered here on July the 4th. And it is time for our number for the day quiz.
Yes.
Every day with Ian Welsh, we do our number for the day quiz. We give Ian 3 choices. So based on the numbers, Ian should be able to get 1 out of 3. And so 33% is always the goal for the week. So
Absolutely.
So our number for the day today is the number of visitors to Montana each year who do some fishing. Montana is known for their great fishing, especially during the summer months.
Okay.
And the number of visitors to Montana each year who do some fishing is the correct answer 200,000. Is the correct answer 400,000? Is the correct answer 600,000? So in Montana, the number of people that are in Montana are not very many. And they actually get almost as many visitors. I want to see how many people are in. Okay, Montana has a population of 1.1 million. But they get a lot of visitors every year. And among those visitors, how many do some fishing? 200,000, 400,000, or 600,000?
Oh, boy. It's kind of a tough question.
It is a toughie, I think.
Okay, well, just taking a shot here. You know, I don't do a lot of fishing myself.
Now,
but
neither do I.
I'm going to say, I'm going to go with A. I'm going to go with 200,000.
All right, the
My
correct
final answer. I'm going to stick with that.
The correct answer of visitors to Montana each year who do some fishing is 400,000.
Oh, it was the middle number.
Well, you're going to have to get tomorrow right then. You're
Yes,
going to have to get
absolutely.
tomorrow right
Gotta
because
get back on that winning track.
I know.
Absolutely.
And this week, of course, you only get 4 opportunities because you were not here on Monday. So
That's-
the
So the pressure is really on.
the room to maneuver is a little bit down. But hey, we'll get it right tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But Ian, again, have a great rest of your 4th of July holiday.
You too, Chad. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
And we will be back for the 5th of July tomorrow. So we'll have Mike Clemens talking sports and Paul Mickleg back talking Wisconsin sports as well. So hopefully you can join us tomorrow morning from 8 until 10 a.m. Coming up next, it's Matt and Air on Air. Thanks for joining us. Chad Holmes Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.